Steelers. All right. Last thing I want to talk about, we talked about it a little bit here and there, is Fan Nation's mock draft. I controlled the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 was rough. Deonte Banks was the pick out of Maryland, cornerback. I got to admit, he was not my favorite pick. Wasn't even remotely close. Like, I went in there and I had a big board, and my big board was Paris Johnson, Broderick Jones, Peter Skoronski, Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon, Joey Porter Jr. One of those 6 guys, they got to fall to 17, right? Like, you got to feel really good about somebody being there at 17. No, wasn't even close. And they all went right
right like in
along.
The teens, right?
Yeah. It was like right after each other. Like, so Gonzalez went 7th to the Raiders, then Witherspoon went 8th to the Falcons, and then Paris Johnson went 9 to the Bears, and Skoronski went 10th to the Eagles. Like, I was sitting there just like, all right, well, if this is real life, you could just throw away your entire draft board because there's nothing left. And then I was sitting there again, and I was like, okay, well, I still got Joey Porter Jr. I still got Broderick Jones. Boom, Joey Porter Jr. goes off the board at 14 to the Patriots. And then boom, the next pick, the Green Bay Packers take Broderick Jones. And there goes my entire first selection of players. So I created a second big board as we were in the midst of this. And it went Dwan Jones, Emmanuel Forbes, Ringo, Darnell Wright, Addison, Miles Murphy, Byron Breezy, and Osiris Torrance. And then obviously Deonte Banks. I think what it showed me is that we have these expectations for 17 and all these mock drafts are coming out. I mean, Mel Kiper Jr. said that they're going to take Zay Flowers over Paris Johnson, which is ridiculous. And the 17th pick is not going to be easy to sit at. It's just not. Like, if I was the Pittsburgh Steelers in that draft and I had the ability to trade up, I would be on the phone making calls with every single team above me just to see how high up I could get to, because, I don't know.
Slim pickings here. Like, this is these are a bunch of great options at 32. They are not great at 17, which, that they might just end up having to do you think this makes it any more likely that they trade back? If like something like that happens, where like Porter is off the board, if Paris Johnson and Witherspoon and all these guys on your big board, if they are off the board by pick 17, like, do you think they'll entertain kind of trading back and just kind of cutting their losses there?
I think possibly. I think that trading back is certainly a possibility. I'm trying to find the draft right now, but I think that you sit there at 17, and if that's the selection, you have to make a decision. And that decision is, am I comfortable with a guy like Deonte Banks, which I think Deonte Banks is a great player with a lot of upside. Like, I'm not going to say he's not. But at the same time, am I comfortable at 17, and who's going to take him behind me? Like, how much farther can we go back before before we're in the same situation? Because you have to avoid that. You can't move back from 17 to 25 and then at 25 be faced with the same situation you were just in at 17 where the face value doesn't match up. If you're going to move back, you have to move back to a point where you're like, okay, well, if we get Deonte Banks at 21 instead of 17 and we just got a 3rd round draft pick for it, that's the move. Like, then it all equals out and it all matches up. Whereas if we move back to 21 and we have to draft Tyreek Stevenson, and all we got was a 3rd round pick out of it, that doesn't add up. That doesn't. But I think that's where it gets, really questionable for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here, just to pull this up. So the Steelers went 17th, excuse me, with Deonte Banks. Then Bijan Robinson goes next to the Lions. Nolan Smith goes to out of Georgia at 19 to the Bucks. Miles Murphy, Kalijah Cansey, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison. You're looking at this, and then Darnell Wright, which I think is the first name off the board that the Steelers would highly consider. And he doesn't go until 24, which I think that's where the question gets serious. Like, if you move back to 24 and Darnell Wright's there, even if you lose Deonte Banks, Darnell Wright at 24 is a good value. It's not a bad value. So I think that it's definitely a possibility, but I just think that I think 17 is just, you're like literally sitting there with a hope and a prayer saying maybe somebody slides. But like and then at the same time, like you have to sit there and hope and say, yeah, maybe somebody slides, but like that's our only pick. Like you only get one option at that point.
Right.
And then like you don't get to pick between your favorite guys or who fits best or our biggest. It's just like,
right. You're at the mercy
here.
Yeah. You're at the mercy of everyone drafting before you. And that's not a good position to be in.
No.
Yeah. I think we talked about this. I referenced it a little bit earlier, but just, like not kind of controlling your own destiny, like not controlling who you get in this draft. It's a tough spot to be in. And I kind of entered this exercise kind of thinking, well, someone's got to drop, like someone has to drop, like you're going to be happy with whoever drops, but
but are you at the same time? Like here's a good example.
Then you see it actually play out and you're like, I'm not happy with it. This was not exactly how I envisioned this stuff going.
No, like, and that was what I learned so quickly. And that's what hit me is I had an expectation going into this draft. And, I get it. The NFL draft never turns out the way that we say it is or that mock drafts go or whatever. But I had an expectation going in there. My expectation is that some team after 10 will have to make a decision on a corner, what corner they're going with. But the fact that Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon went 7-8, immediately I went, oh, okay, well, there's no chance the Steelers are getting a corner. Like it's got to be Deonte Banks or nobody because Joey Porter Jr. is definitely going to go. And then Paris Johnson and Peter Skoronski go back to back again. And then the same situation with the offensive tackle. Like what happens in those top 10 picks? And like there was a couple of question marks, like, Will Levis didn't go until after 10, which is, I guess, like it did a little bit. Like it wasn't like that's a strange pick, and like Brian Branch went 16 to the Commanders. And I think that's a name to watch as well. But, it just, if those things start happening, my mind went, if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm either moving up or I'm moving back real quick. Like I'm either immediately going up to 9 to get Paris Johnson, or I'm moving back and saying, okay, well, like, let's figure this out. Let's take a breath because right now we're just backed against the wall. We got to make a decision. It's not good. And that's just how I felt. And I think that's what, the harsh reality of 17 is. And we've been putting that into context a little bit here and there, but it hit me. It hit me hard. Like I was on that board. You got 2 minutes and I was just like, Deonte Banks is a good pick, but he's not my favorite pick. I don't think he's the Steelers' favorite pick. And this is tough. And that's the other thing is when you get into something like this and you have 32, you don't have a computer, you don't have anything. You have 32 guys, and every single guy has intense knowledge of the team that they're picking for. So you have to guess that to some degree, this is accurate. And once those guys started going, it was rough. So I don't know. We'll see what happened. I'm going to drop another mock draft next week. I'm going to drop mock draft, I think, once a week until the draft, just to,
we've only got 2 weeks.
2 weeks left, right? 2.5 weeks. And then we are 2 weeks tomorrow. Actually, it is NFL draft day, which is wild. But I just think that there's a bunch of scenarios for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we got to start talking about all of them because the closer we get and the clearer these draft boards become, I think the more difficult life gets for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the more you got to think about a potential move. So we'll dive into all that and more. Felt good talking about the NFL draft and having a little bit of context. We're getting, you could feel the steam rolling a little bit to where you're like, okay, this is real now,
definitely.
A month ago it was just like, oh, well, it's 17. Maybe they'll draft Jordan Addison or, maybe a quarterback. You never know. Maybe and now you're just like, oh, okay, well now there's a plan, and you just gotta connect the dots, follow the plan. These next 2 weeks are going to get even crazier. I'm excited about it. I'm sure you're excited about it as well. All Steelers Talk has officially launched their own clothing brand, Black and Gold Apparel, now available on bonfire.com or at the shop tab at our YouTube page. Your new favorite place for Steelers t-shirts, sweatshirts, and crew necks, now out, now available in multiple designs, including some of my favorites, Kenny Comeback, Mute, and Kenny DeGeorge. Check them all out at bonfire.com or on the shop tab at our YouTube page.